Hello, bonjour, namaste, ni hao, and ohio, everybody. What is going on? It is Gale here. Welcome back to the YouTube channel once again for another Danmachi Fulland of Water and Light video. And today it is finally time for me to do my complete game review on Danmachi Fulland of Water and Light. It has been a couple of days since I finished the game. Of course, if you guys weren't aware, I finished the game entirely on stream. I 100%ed the game across 3 different live streams, so you guys can go and check it out. I did all the sub scenarios, the main scenarios, and so on and so forth, and I had a lot of fun. That already can give you an idea of where this review is going to go, but of course you might want to know some of the nuances and some of the details that I kind of want to talk about in regards to this game. Now, of course, if you guys go on to enjoy this video, please be sure to leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel for more content, and let me know in the comment section down below, what did you guys think about the game? If you've played it, if you watched me play it, if you watched somebody else play it, what did you guys think? Let me know in the comment section down below. Now, this video, like I said, is going to be more specifically a complete game review. There will be a separate video going into the spoiler details of the story, of course, covering all the stuff that was revealed to us in the story, and it'll be in a separate video. Like I said, I really want to talk about the story. It is amazing what Omori has done, but I think it's better to be kept and spoken about in a separate video. It deserves its own in-depth, lengthy video. So yeah, just keep that in mind in regards to this video. Of course, is that we're not gonna go into spoilery details or anything of that sort for this review. Now, first and foremost, let's talk about the story itself. Let's get it out of the way. I'll give you guys a quick TLDR of what I think about the story without delving into spoilers. It is a classic Omori short to mid-length story. It feels like one of those Danmimo stories we used to have back in the day that was usually run during winter or Halloween. One of the lengthier stories, but not like anniversary length or even like winter reverie length. But it was sort of along the lines of some of the other stories we've had that last about 2.5-3 hours, if not even longer, to be quite honest. I think the whole story in its complete length, if you are taking it all in, making sure you're not skipping dialogue or anything of that sort, it's probably going to be around 4 to 4.5 hours is my guess. So it is basically the equivalent of a part one of a anniversary story, or equivalent of a one part of an anniversary story in Danmimo, basically. And that is where I would probably say that I wish it was a little bit longer, because I feel like if the story was naturally longer, you'd obviously have more stages and everything to incorporate into the game as well, naturally speaking. So I feel like if the story was a little bit longer, we would have been more benefited but with the whole situation. I think having maybe a couple of stages set in the past, you know, going in between. Of course, one of the key things that we know in the story that happens, of course, is obviously us learning more about the past with Fulland, Dine, and Belinda, right? It would have been amazing to have a couple of stages set in the past with us using Fulland as well. We have the sprites and everything for him, right? So it would have been amazing to have him be playable in certain stages. Maybe he wouldn't be playable outside of it, but it would have been fun to have him playable for at least those stages, and it would have added a lot more game time as well to the game, naturally speaking. But yes, I would have loved if we had just generally a little bit of a lengthier story with more sections set in the past, is what I would say. Without delving into spoilers and anything, I would have preferred if we had more sections, you know, going over the past and going over maybe Fulland's past alongside Belinda and Dine. It would have been amazing to have, of course. It would have been amazing to see as well. But overall, still, nonetheless, you know, with what we had in the story, the characterizations and everything, especially after this last 1.5 years of suffering with Don Crow's stories, I think we've had a complete, you know, 180 when it comes to Fulland of Water and Light. It's actually a really, really enjoyable story, and I genuinely enjoyed it. It was quite a lot of fun. Not as emotional as some of the Danmimo stories, but definitely something that you know, has a lot of twists, a lot of turns, a lot of drama, a lot of action. It's good. It is very, very solid. Again, Omori was in his bag writing the story, and it makes sense. Again, you know, Omori is writing the story, so it's going to be classic Omori writing in the game, and that's what we got. That is what we got. So if you're looking at the story side of things, I think you'll really enjoy it, to be quite honest. From my perspective, I personally enjoyed it. I know a lot of other Danmachi fans really enjoyed it. I think if you are going into it blind, you are really going to enjoy the Fulland of Water and Light story, in my personal opinion. So that's the story side of things. Now I want to talk a bit about the gameplay, the mechanics, and all that sort of jazz, basically, because I think that's also been a bit of a hot topic when it comes to this game ever since, you know, we started getting first screenshots for this game and everything, right? Everybody's been quite disappointed at the fact that it's a 2D platformer. It's a Metroidvania slash side-scroller-esque game, basically, right? And I understand. I completely understand. I am a person who enjoys open world RPG-esque titles. You know, I'm a guy who's been playing the likes of Persona, SMT, Digimon, Pokemon, so on and so forth for so long. I played games like Elden Ring, I played games like GTA, Mafia, so on and so forth. I prefer these open world, yeah, maybe linear, but open world games nonetheless, right? I've been a big fan of those. So of course, you know, when we first heard that it was going to be an ARPG, I was very excited that it was a potential open world game that we were going to have for Danmachi, but instead what we got was this game. And you know, I say that in a very derogatory way, but to be quite honest, as you guys might have been able to tell from the live streams, and subsequently me, you know, jumping on and playing a little bit again after the fact of completing the game, I still really enjoy it, man. The combat aspect and also the challenge aspect of the game has been really fun. What also has made me very happy with the game, to be honest, is the learning curve of the game. The thing is, right, for me personally, I don't want any game to be something that I'm gonna, you know, get in, immediately learn, and that's about it, because there needs to be a learning curve. There needs to be a reason why I should keep playing outside of, oh, I've already learned what to do in the game, so okay, I'm kind of just doing it automatically, right? I have to keep adapting, I have to keep learning, and I think this game does a fairly good job. I think there could be some improvements, and I'll come on to them in just a moment, but generally speaking, the way the game gets you in, the differences between Belle and Eyes as characters, the play styles between the two, they're two very different characters. You know, with Belle, of course, you can do certain things. With Eyes, you can do other things. Eyes, for example, can chain arts attacks, whereas Belle naturally is a little bit faster, and he has a better and a more higher combo attack, you could say, in his basic attack. He can do more basic attacks basically in one go. So you have that difference as well. Then you obviously have the differences between their arts attacks as well, their combo attacks, their auto combo attacks, you could call them. And that also is something that you need to learn. Then you have the enemies. The enemies are different every single stage you get onto. Only once you get towards the end do they become similar and stuff. But for the most part, from stages 1 to about 5 or 6, they keep changing and they keep adding new enemies, and they keep doing different things, and that adds another dimension to the learning curve of the game. And that is what makes me very happy when I was playing this game. It really did make me very happy, and I was kind of like consistently engaged with the game. And that to me is very important. You know, a lot of people may feel like the game, you know, it may not be technical, or it may not be fun or anything of that sort. But I think obviously it's subjective as to what you might find fun and stuff like that. But if you are somebody who's looking at it from a perspective of, you are somebody who's looking at it from an RPG experience, somebody who wants a challenge, somebody who's looking at it as like, okay, is it gonna be something that engages you? I think this game ticks those 3 checkboxes for me, at least. The RPG elements as well is pretty fun. Of course, I do think it's a bit of a different style of an RPG experience in a way, because you're not defeating enemies to gain experience, kind of, because you still gain experience from defeating enemies, the S level, but the primary thing you need for the ability trees and the skill tree specifically, or the spec board as it's called in game, is you need it to be basically you need to basically find these tier shards or teardrop shards all over the map, basically, all over different maps basically, and it adds towards the exploration of the area, and you learn new skills and stuff like that by exploring the map as well, which is another thing that I really liked. Is for a 2D platformer, you know, I'm one of the few that was a bit concerned. 2D platformer, you know, one of the big things about Danmachi, of course, when it comes to, you know, anything Danmachi related, is the dungeon exploration. So if you're not having the dungeon in the game, but there should be the exploration aspect of it nonetheless, especially as it's an RPG. and they had the exploration aspect, because you have to go out of your way to find the mini bosses, you have to go out of your way to find the shards, and so on and so forth, the sub scenarios. It is really good in that sense. So overall, when it comes to the gameplay loop and the mechanics and so on and so forth, I had a blast. I really did have a blast. However, I do think that there are some things that I would have personally added on or improved, to be quite honest. And again, I think that, you know, if they are going to run a 2D platformer as a basis for future Danmachi games, maybe of course I would hope for another Danmachi game as well that, you know, focuses on an open world and everything of that sort. But to be honest, since they have the engine going, they have the models going and everything, I would be so down for a future game to have the likes of potentially Ryu as a playable character and so on and so forth. That is one of the detriments I would have for this game, is like Bell and Eyes are of course the playable characters, and there is a somewhat valid reason given to us in the story, of course, right, as to why those two are playable primarily. But I would also have preferred if Ryu could have joined in as well, or potentially you know, a Lafia character style addition as well. One of the two, Ryu or Lafia, I think being added would have added a little bit more of a dimension to the game as well. I do like what they did with the assists nonetheless. They are very useful, very usable as well, but I do wish we had an extra playable character as well. It would have also added to the stages as well, because obviously we had every stage was different with Bell and Eyes, but also we would have had more additional stages with that character. Something that they could do in the future as well, if they really wanted to, was do a $15 to $20 DLC down the line with a specific Ryu-focused story, potentially, where she's fighting the monsters as well and stuff like that. And yeah, that would be her storyline, and she's playable, right? That would be also fine with me. I would be down for that, to be quite honest. Personally, I'd be very down for that. But yeah, that is one of the things I would say is definitely the playable characters. Having Bell and Eyes as the main focal playable characters is fine, but it's just like Infinite Combat, where, you know, we've kind of passed that time. I know Bell and Eyes are the main characters, but having one or two more playable characters in the form of either Ryu or Lafia or both would have been amazing. And I think that's the bare minimum I'd want in a future game, outside of course having a party of AI or something like that in a turn-based RPG style game or whatever, where you can use Haruhime, Belf, and so on and so forth, be it like a turn-based RPG like I said, or a ARPG that's similar to Xenoblade Chronicles, sure. But if you're going to be using a game like this where it's more focused on the combos and stuff like that, and mechanics and all that sort of stuff, at least 4 playable characters we need. Bell, Eyes, Ryu, Lafia is what I would personally go for, those 4. That is my personal opinion, of course, like I said. Outside of that, what I would also have suggested changing a little bit is potentially just generally how the grind was for the teardrop shards and of course the spec board. While I had a lot of fun, you know, finding the shards and, you know, building up the spec board, in some cases they felt really OP, the spec board upgrades. In other cases it felt not as OP or as usable, to be quite honest, and I feel like that is something that they need a better balance in the future if they really want to kind of continue with this style of game. Again, we were talking about this on one of the live streams, and honestly I do agree with that person. If they want to use the foundation for this game for future games, by all means go for it, because obviously costs will be a lot less, so potentially, you know, generally speaking, the price of the game in the future might be less because of the success of this, and also just generally because everything has been prepared already model wise. All you'd have to do is maybe add a couple of models here and there, of course, right, if you want to add more characters, and of course change up the story and stuff. But it would really work, honestly, it really would work. But yeah, I would say in the future, if they want to come back, I would say some balancing of the spec board would definitely help a little bit. And then the other thing is the art side of things. The auto combos, some of them really strong, some of them felt a little bit in all honesty. Some of them felt like they didn't really do much, and they didn't really have as much of an effect as I'd hoped they would have. The other thing is, of course, generally speaking, from a gameplay perspective, is when you're doing your basic attacks and your arts, sometimes the combos can hit or miss depending on how you do it. So I would personally say if there was a a button that would allow you to immediately go into a second string if possible, especially with Eyes, who's capable of doing that, right? Who's able to chain her arts. I wish there was a way to kind of chain them in a very specific way. Maybe like double tapping the Y button specifically would allow you to do it in a certain way or something like that. I think that would be a lot better. More customizability basically when it comes to the chaining side of things, of course, is what I mean to say here. Still very good, still very, very solid in my opinion in terms of otherwise. From basic attacks to arts, it's fine. It's more so with Eyes when you're doing the arts into arts, this two arts combos, it felt a little bit off at times, just a little bit off at times. The music of this game is solid, I would say. It's nothing revolutionary. It doesn't give me the Don Mimo feelings at all, really, to be honest. But it is solid. I think it's a lot better than, say, for example, Don Crows, to be quite honest. I really enjoyed the music, and especially towards the end, of course, when Saju no Hana sang, really solid, of course, there. Again, it is Saju no Hana singing. It is her voice and her music. She's really good, so obviously makes sense that it's going to be really good. But outside of that, the in-game music, the OSTs, the background music, and all that sort of stuff, very solid, I would say. Very, very solid nonetheless. The other thing I'm going to be raving about quite a bit, and I'll talk about it in more detail in the story, spoiler details and stuff in that video, but the sub-scenarios is to die for, honestly. I think if we had a couple of more sub-scenarios and potentially even voice acting for the sub-scenarios, 100% that would have been amazing. That would have been a 10 out of 10 from me straight away. Forget the main story, the sub-scenarios are really good. Really, really good. And you have just such nice interactions between characters you wouldn't even imagine to have interactions with. Mikoto Eyes, Ryu Mikoto Eyes, Ryu Hestia Eyes. You have also the likes of Horn and Bell, Horn and Lily, so on and so forth. It's actually surprisingly a lot of fun and unique in its own way. It's very nice. It is very, very nice. So I would say the sub scenarios are also very solid and just genuinely are a joy to read through and stuff. Honestly, really, really nice. Now, I kind of want to talk also about the general artwork on this game, the character design and sprites and stuff like that, the models and stuff. The models for the most part looked really good. There were a couple of more things that we found a little bit questionable, like Bell when he was running felt a little bit stiff at times. Felt like he wanted to take a shit, to be quite honest, at times. But outside of that, I mean, the artwork and the designs, Kakage Sensei is the one who made it. Kakage is the one who does the illustrations for Sword Art Toria, if I'm not mistaken. If my memory serves me correct. He does it for the light novel specifically, not the manga. He does the light novel illustrations. And he actually did a very good job here, in my opinion. I think the CG artwork was pretty darn solid. And overall, it was very good. It was actually very, very solid, in my opinion. I was surprised, to say the least, with how good some of the CG arts were, to be quite honest. Of course, I've been using them for the thumbnails and stuff for these videos. Of course, I've not been trying to put any of the spoilery ones, but I've been trying to put, obviously, the actual thumbnail ones that I think are non-spoilery and are quite nice to look at. And they're pretty nice. The only thing I wish was that we had more CG artwork. I think especially for some of the combat sequences and stuff, it would have been nice to have them. It felt very much like a light novel, actually, in that sense, where we had a couple of CG art scenes, but they were far and few between, you know? It's the same as a light novel, where it's only a couple of CG scenes here and there being thrown in, or a couple of arts being thrown in here and there, and it's it felt very light novelesque in that sense. But I would have preferred if we had a couple of more, especially because it's a game. That's another thing I would wish they'd improve on in the future if they do come back and make a new game, is I would wish they'd do that. Now, all things said and done, so far I've been raving about the game. I've been really, really happy with the game, and it's been great, right? Overall, I would say, if I had to give the game a score out of 10, just generally on its own, the way it is, I would say it's a solid 7 or 8 out of 10. Above average. I really enjoyed it. Absolute blast. Short game, but an absolute blast nonetheless. I think if you were looking at an average time, you're looking at about 10 hours game time, which is fine. There are a lot of games out there that are around that time anyways. You know, Senua Saga Hell's Blade, if you guys don't know what that game is, it's an Xbox exclusive title. That was about 6 to 7 hours full completion and everything, right? And a couple of other 2D platformer games tend to be around also this sort of duration, 6 to 12 hours basically, so on. And a lot of other games are like that as well, mind you. But what also I have to talk about is the price. And that obviously will affect your thought processes, of course, on how you perceive the game's duration and, of course, quality. It is a $50 game, right? We all know this. Of course, depending on the country you're in, like I said in my first impressions video, it's going to be different. India, you're going to be finding it a bit cheaper. Philippines, pretty cheap, so on and so forth, right? I will say this. For me personally, I wasn't expecting it to be worth the money that I spent. I genuinely wasn't expecting that. However, I have been pleasantly surprised, and yes, I've spent 50 or 42 pounds, I should say, for in my currency to play this game, and I only played about 12 hours of it, or 13 hours, of course, excluding all, obviously, I will say content aside. Would I have enjoyed it content aside, content creation aside, streaming aside? And I would say yes, I would have still enjoyed it massively. I am fairly shocked that I have enjoyed it. I thought I would come out of it, you know, 12 hours in or whatever it was when I finished the stream off and I saved the game for the final time from when I was, you know, 100% done with the game. I thought I would be regretting the purchase potentially, but you know, a couple of days on and everything, I'm not regretting it at all. I don't think I have any regrets. However, that is not to say that you might not have any regrets. And this is where I will say, from my perspective, if you are somebody who's interested in buying the game but is worried, I do a couple of things. First and foremost, wait until a sale happens or wait until there's a CD key available online. I'm pretty sure inevitably, just like how we had you know, how we had a key for, you know, this, what's it called, for Infinite Combat on various key websites and stuff, you might be able to do that basically, where you're able to buy it from a key shop and get it for a cheaper price, right? Absolutely, that is fairly possible. But I would say what you can do if you want to, in order to basically just be a bit more patient and get it from obviously the legitimate places, is wait until the Steam summer sale, which is when we should be seeing the first discount for this game, in my opinion. That is when we'll get the first discount for this game, and so you might want to wait until then. Alternatively, if you feel like you're willing to make the purchase, the $50 purchase, but you're not sure if you'll enjoy the game, try it out for 2 hours. Remember that you can do a refund if you play under 2 hours on Steam, so the best thing to do is just do that. Try the game out for 2 hours, see if you like it. If you don't like it, refund it. If you like it but you don't want to make the purchase right now, refund it as well, and then wait till the summer sale. That is the best option you can do when it comes to this game, especially if you're not too sure about purchasing it or not, you know, purchasing it completely right now or not. You have options. You have a plethora of options. Personally, I think this is a great way to support this franchise also as well, to be quite honest, right? Especially considering it's the first time we've had a game in like 7 years, right? And it's in my opinion, it is a much better game than Infinite Combat, to be quite honest. Like, Infinite Combat does have a longer game time, right? Don't get me twisted. Like, if I look at Infinite Combat right now, I'm probably at 40 hours. Yeah, I'm at 40 hours of game time there, and I've finished the game and I'm doing the post game. But the post game is such an unnecessary slog to get all the, you know, dating scenes and stuff like that, which, yes, it adds more content to the game, but it's very boring content in my personal opinion to get to that to get to the promised land, if you know what I mean. So personally, to me, I would say this is a better overall game. However, in terms of content, length of content, if you want to not include the boring aspect of it, Infinite Combat definitely has way more content, but it's up to you to decide which one you have more fun with and so on and so forth. But nonetheless, like I said, this is the first game we've had in 7 years or so. So for me personally, I think, honestly, outside of the price side of things, I would say this has been a solid return or solid restart, you could say, I think is the best way to put it here. I wasn't sure if I should say restart, reboot, or start in itself, but it is a good restart is what I would say. It's a very, very good restart for the Danmachi gaming side of things, console gaming side, in my opinion. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I'm curious to see what you guys have to say. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy, everybody. Bye-bye.